J104. Choice is a wonderful part of the human experiences. You choose to click on this video, and maybe after hearing this intro, you'll choose to click off of it. There is so much choice in a life, it can get a little fatiguing. That is why the mind creates patterns or habits that we subconsciously do. If that's eating junk food, or after work sitting down to play a game. And once you sit down to play that video game, well, there's not many choices to make. Kill the bad guys, peek a corner, do what the game is telling you to do, and if you don't do what the game is telling you to do, you fail with the famous game over screen. But today's game is a little bit different, as today we are looking at Detroit Become Human, made by David Cage, a man who believes that a game over screen is the failure of the developer and not the player. And well, he also thinks that we need a little bit more choice in our lives, as I now have to choose how to transition to the next part of this video. That being a little breakdown on the way that Mr. Cage thinks, as I feel it's important to understand, as I feel it's almost impossible to talk about Detroit without touching on David Cage's philosophy when it comes to games he makes. So let's break down some parts of that philosophy. When playing a David Cage game, he wants the player to feel something, to get emotional, to feel attached to the characters. And not just for entertainment, and not just to feel the adrenaline of the actions, but to feel empathy, fear and love for those characters, which I understand wanting your players to feel more whilst playing your game, but at least when it comes to this point, I don't feel that you need to alter the current formula. Like, don't get me wrong, I felt horrible during my recording of this game, as I played Detroit Become Human many times before. So for this playthrough, I changed two things up. Firstly, I was playing on PC for the first time, but that's not a massive change up. Secondly, I decided to do what is referred to as a red Connor run, aka doing evil choices, and well, it sucked, but we'll get to that soon. As I have mentioned many times before, choice is a big part of a David Cage game. I was told that a Cage game is closer to an interactive book than it is a video game, to a degree of course. It's not like those, how would you best describe it, one-handed games, if you catch my drift? But you do need to spend more time waiting for something to happen. But unlike my playthrough of Life is Strange 2, you are still drawn to the screen with a pretty good story, and also the choices are timed, giving you a limited time to answer the way that you want to, which is what I feel is another aspect to make you feel more attached to the character, giving you limited time to respond, so that sometimes you may pick the wrong option because you were rushed. Unlike SWTOR, when you have unlimited time to respond, but you also need to pay attention, but you'll still end up choosing what you didn't want to because they are worded so horribly.
Alright, so what should we do?
Say no thanks. I don't think he did anything wrong.
No thanks, scumbag.
Wait, what? No! That's so stupid!
And also you need to pay attention for the QTEs in the game, which make up most of the gameplay of this game. And the QTEs are about the only thing you see on screen, as David Cage games do not have a HUD, or if they do, it's hidden behind button presses. Now, I'm not sure we all heard the saying that video games are an art form, and well, I very much believe that. I actually believe video games may be the best form of art, as it is the easiest art to make interactive. But Mr. Cage's game seems to go about imitating the art of film, which this game, more than any other, trying to look like a movie. From the angles they use for the camera during gameplay, to not having a HUD, and also, I know a lot of games do this now, but I feel David Cage games were the first to use full body motion cap to the extreme extent that they do. Now I'm probably wrong about that, but it feels true to me. Also, the performances look amazing, also due to the fact that they almost always have a star-studded cast, with their previous game Beyond Two Souls having Elliot Page and a man who is known as somewhat of a scientist himself. And then this game is also using well-known actors like Jesse Williams from Grey's Anatomy and Mr. Krabs himself, which with everything else just adds to that feel that this is a movie. At least how I feel playing Detroit. Also, I feel I should mention that when I say David Cage, I mostly mean Quantum Dream, which is the studio that he heads up. Obviously not to understate the work of the rest of the team behind these games, but I also assume that most people at Quantum Dream have a very similar philosophy to David Cage when it comes to game development. And also, David Cage is easier to say than Quantum Dream. A little bit, I guess. Not really, actually. But that's enough about David Cage, Quantum Dream, and philosophy of the man who made the game. It's time to see how that translates into said game. Detroit is a game about, you guessed it, choice and the outcomes of those choices, which makes the game very difficult to talk about, at least the way I usually do. Especially when it comes to the story, as unlike other choice-based games, life is strange, your choices really do matter, as there isn't just one or two outcomes, but tens of hundreds of endings. Now, are some of those endings a bit more flushed out than others? Yes, but this is the only game I have played when they say, your choice matters, it really does. For example, there is a rare ending where the 3 playable characters die before any of the major story points happen. And there's an actual cutscene and all that for that ending. But like, which is this the first ending you're gonna get on your playthrough? Probably not. You'd be very confused, and also you would have to be really bad at video games, as even when you are trying to fail the QTEs, it takes a lot of time and a lot of repeated failures one after another to actually alter a certain outcome. But since there are so many possibilities when it comes to the story, I think I'll break down each character and talk about the main big choices, starting with everyone's favourite character, the android sent by Cyberlife. Connor is a detective android range, being the most advanced line made by Cyberlife, the company who invented and builds all the androids, who, when we first meet him, is on his way to an active crime scene where a deviant android has taken a little girl hostage. Now, what is a deviant android? Well, that is the main reason for Connor's creation, as he doesn't work on human cases but deviant cases, a deviant being an android that has broken free from their programming, normally due to a traumatic event where the android will then develop emotions, or at least proceed to have developed emotions, as they can't develop emotions because they're machines. But anyways, so this deviant has taken the girl hostage. As well, he had found out that the family were planning on replacing him with a newer model, which is the event that made him snap. So as Connor, we can investigate the apartment and find out info that we can use to save the child. And I think this mission serves as a very good opening for the game, as you can basically learn all the information you need, no matter how you choose to play the chapter, where we learn that deviants see themselves as alive, but working androids don't, as the deviant threatens to kill Connor, but he simply replies that he is a machine who cannot be killed because he is not alive. Now, there are about 5 different endings for this introduction chapter, but they all narrow down to 2 outcomes. Connor saves the girl or the girl dies. The main difference for the 5 outcomes is that Connor can die in 3 of them, which is the biggest difference in the early game between Connor and the other androids you play as, which by the way, this is a free character game. I wonder where they got that idea from. Connor can be terminated and then come back to life. As he is working for CyberLife, they just upload his memory into a new Connor series android, and it's back to the races. Where in the early game, Connor is sent on loan to the Detroit Police Department to investigate more cases of deviants, working with one Detective Hank Anderson, a lieutenant in the police force. And he was once a very decorated police officer until the loss of his son turned him to the drinky drinks. And of course, the death of his son was half caused by an android. So much like Spooner, he is the one that has to work on the android cases, but he hates androids. But quick jump in here. Hank's son dies whilst undergoing surgery with an android doctor, as the real doctor was high on red ice, a highly addictive drug in Detroit. But I feel like, honestly, if an android couldn't save him, why would a human doctor do any better? Especially one who's a drug addict. But I guess humans don't think the most logically, which is why Hank still blames androids. But anyways, Connor is off to investigate these cases with Hank, as we are presented with a lot of choice that leads Connor towards deviancy himself, where you can either grow closer to Hank and make choices like to save his life over the investigation and letting deviants go free. Or what I was doing in this playthrough and not doing any of that and keeping Connor a machine and picking the most machine-like outcomes.
Don't you fucking move. You bastard. You saw I was gonna fall and you'd rather let me die than fail your fucking mission.
During the investigation, Connor finds out about Jericho, a place androids go to be free, and what CyberLife want him to find. Once finding this place and coming face to face with its leader, that's where Connor can choose to flip that little deviancy switch in his brain or not, or his processor, I guess. The thing I really liked about this game is that you need to pick enough deviant leaning options or you cannot turn. So it's not like you can change your mind towards the end, which some say the game doesn't offer real choice then, but I mean, of course it doesn't. There is so many outcomes a developer can code, but it is also making you live with your consequences of your actions. So Connor finds Jericho. In most playthroughs, of course, there is always the option that you don't find enough evidence to find it, or you cannot connect the right clues about Jericho in time, which I have never done, so I don't know that outcome, but I assume Connor is just shut down by CyberLife. So what are some of the pieces of evidence that you could use to locate this Jericho? Well, the biggest that kind of goes nowhere is that of RA9, something all deviants have a somewhat worshipalistic obsession with. RA9 being some kind of Jesus Messiah for the androids. Some saying that RA9 is the first android to ever become deviant. Other claiming that it's just some line of code that goes bad when they flip that switch. And the last group of people claiming that the android known as Markus is RA9. So, who is Markus? Well, maybe RA9, but let's talk about what we know about Markus. Well, he was a somewhat special android even before going deviant, as he was gifted from Elijah Kamsky, the founder of CyberLife, to Carl Manfred, a famous artist who had lost the use of his legs in a car crash, and with the help of Markus is slowly getting back into the world of creating art. As a non-freed android, Markus had a pretty good life, given a lot of freedoms with Carl, as Carl would always push Markus to be free-minded, even getting him to create paintings without copying something from his memory.
Give it a try. Try painting something.
Paint? But would I... painting what?
Anything you want. Give it a try. That is a perfect copy of reality. The painting is not about replicating the world. It's about interpreting, improving on it, showing something you see.
Carl, I don't think I can do that. It's not in my program.
Go on, go. Try it. Grab that canvas. Do something for me. Close your eyes. Close your eyes. Trust me. Try to imagine something that doesn't exist, something you've never seen. Now concentrate on how it makes you feel, and let your hand drift across the canvas. Oh my God.
But the biggest problem they had is Carl's son, Leo. They never had the best relationship, Carl and Leo. Leo being made of a one-night stand Carl had while he was big famous painter man. But Carl was trying to make a change, but unfortunately it may have been a little too late, as Leo was using Carl as more of an ATM than a father. Which brings us up to Markus's deviant event, as Leo had shown up once asking for money and was unsuccessful. So after Markus and Carl returned home from a party, they find the art room lights were on. When entering the room, they see Leo stealing some art to sell for money, or most likely red ice, saying that it's all going to be his when Carl dies anyway. Leo, enraged, starts to get pissed off as Carl treats Markus like more of a son than Leo, his own flesh and blood. So Leo starts hitting Markus, and Carl instructs Markus not to fight back. And this is when Markus goes deviant. You, the player, are still given the choice to attack Leo or listen to Carl's orders. But either way, Carl's heart cannot handle whichever outcome happens, as he slumps out of his wheelchair yelling for Markus to run as the police show up. Leo saying that the android attacked Carl. Then the police shoot Markus. Now, this scene, like much of the game, has a lot of outcomes. Either way though, Markus is shot, but Carl can die from his heart issues or survive but become even more ill, becoming bedbound. And as Markus, if you choose to attack Leo, Leo can pass away. But no matter what, Markus is shot by the police that he himself called, and he is taken to a dump for androids left broken in need of repairs in a massive ditch. Which is when you get my favourite chapter in the game, surprisingly, as Markus is crawling his way through the junkyard looking for spare parts of other broken androids to repair himself. Which, this is where Markus gets his, I cannot pronounce this, so I'm going to try my best, I apologise, heterochromia, I think, that Jesse Williams has. That's the two different eye colours. But Markus finally finds enough parts from other androids to crawl himself out of the pit, finding a cool looking jacket as he heads off looking for Jericho. After solving some puzzles, the true location of Jericho is revealed to Markus, it being an abandoned container ship. Making his way through the halls of the rusted out ship, he comes across a bunch of androids hiding away, just sitting around in the ship waiting to die or shut down. So he makes it his mission to make his people known with the help of the head of the leaders of Jericho, that being North, Simon and Josh. Simon being a good friend to Markus, where North is more of a devil on his shoulder pushing for a more violent revolution, where Josh is angling for a more peaceful route, trying to get his people free without injury to humans or androids. And throughout Markus's quests to better Jericho, he can make choices that align you with either Josh or North. These missions being raiding a CyberLife warehouse for blue blood, a very important biocomponent. Then they raid a TV station to get their message out there, a message that can either be peaceful calls for freedom, or an all-out declaration of war where Markus asks for a US state to be subceded and handed over to the androids. And lastly, a march where you make your voice known, which once again can end peacefully or in a bloodbath. And then you attack Cyberlife stores with a bunch of androids inside them where, you guessed it, you free the androids, but once again you guessed it, it can either be a peaceful or violent attack on the area around the Cyberlife shop. And then after all this action, the police, with the help of Connor, find Jericho. Or without the help of Connor, depending on how you play the game. When a battle starts, which is where the change for Connor to turn deviant happens, but after setting a bomb to blow up in the ship, Markus and his people flee once again, this time with a plan to make their final stand. Oh, and there is also one outcome where a non-turned Connor meets Markus at the bomb, where there is a chance that Connor kills Markus or vice versa. Of course, since this is my red Connor playthrough, this is what happened to me. But Connor can just come back, but it's final stand time for Markus and the android revolution, where it could be an all-out war with androids and humans alike gunning each other down. Now, as this game is a game of choice, there are many outcomes to the war. So the one I got was with North leading Jericho as Markus was dead into an all-out war, where all of Jericho is gunned down, and I was going to look up the other outcomes, but to be honest, I think I won't, as I think you should get to experience that part for yourselves. And well, I looked up a video for all the game's possible endings, and well, it said there was over 99 endings. So Mr. Cage really did achieve his dream of player choice. I'm actually kind of in shock that there are so many endings. But let's not sit here in that shock. Let's move on and talk about the game's final character. And unfortunately, my least favourite one. That being Cara. Cara is a general household android. The first time we meet Cara, she is inside of a Cyberlife store getting repaired after apparently being hit by a car, where her owner Todd takes her home and tells her that her job is to look after his daughter Alice. Alice being the one who named her Cara. So upon returning to their house, Alice seems standoffish towards Cara, but Cara gets to her chores, cleaning around the house, going room by room, finding a gun in Todd's room, and red ice in the laundry room. One night while Alice and Todd are sitting there for dinner, Todd has one of his seemingly patented anger outbursts, which is how Cara needed her repairs. She wasn't hit by a car, she was hit by a Todd. So Alice runs upstairs to her room and Todd gives chase, instructing Cara to stay still. But now she can to become a deviant. You can even go into Todd's room and grab the gun you saw whilst cleaning and confront Todd, where once again, there are a couple of things that can happen. If you fail all the QTEs, Cara can be destroyed by Todd, or she can knock out Todd, or she can kill Todd with the gun. If it's the latter two, Cara and Alice will then run to a bus and run away. From here on out, Cara and Alice go on a wild journey of trying to survive, which is basically you making choices on how to keep Alice safe. If that's stealing from humans to afford to sleep in a motel, or staying in an abandoned house or car for a night, which I end up on my first playthrough feeling very bad for some of the choices I made as Cara, but we'll get to that. But after their first night, Connor is hot on their trail, chasing them across a highway, and 95% of the time they get away from Connor, making it to Slatko's mansion, a creepy playhouse of android horrors sort of thing. If you escape there, you can gain a friend named Luther. You then go to an abandoned theme park. Then on to some android smugglers where they set you up with the location of Jericho arriving on the night of the big attack of Jericho. But before the attack, Markus, if he is alive and within good standings with Jericho, will set them up with fake passports. When returning to Alice, we find out that, spoilers, she is an android. Which this is the thing that made me feel very shitty on my first ever playthrough. Like, we were stealing from the poor people of Detroit, and if you think the people of Detroit are poor now in real life, imagine when most of our jobs have been taken from androids. But we were stealing from these people because Alice was cold, or she's complaining about feeling cold and being cold, but she's an android, she can turn that off. I don't understand. Did she not know she was an android? I don't know how that works. I don't know why there are even child androids. Why would you want that? That seems creepy. But anyways, after that, Cara and Alice make a run from Jericho where there are 4 outcomes for them. They either get shot down by soldiers in the street, they get captured leaving Jericho and end up going to an android recycling center, or they attempt to gain access to Canada through either a border checkpoint or a boat across the river. And of course, all of these outcomes have sub-outcomes. Do they escape? Does only one of them escape? Do they all get shut down? Many outcomes. As mentioned before, apparently there are over 100 possible endings for this game, which is truly crazy when you think about it. Most games having just 1 or 2 outcomes, cough cough again, LIS1. But the downside of having so many endings is not all of them are as well written as others. And I'm sure having the mocap so many endings costs a lot more, especially when you have to pay the cost of a bunch of C, B, and sometimes even A-list celebrities. But at the end of the day, I think Detroit Become Human is a very different and unique gaming experience for the most part. And well, let's just say, especially after doing my Red Connor playthrough, well, Mr. Cage made me feel emotions, not empathy. I felt anger at myself for what I did to especially Cara and Alice. So I will go through my exact outcome for them now, because I felt so horrible, especially knowing if I made a couple different choices, it would have gone completely different. So they got captured by soldiers whilst fleeing Jericho, and they get taken to an android recycling center. But something comes up at the recycling center, and Cara is able to escape, leaving Alice behind, where she dies all by herself, well, with a bunch of other androids, but she gets shut down wishing that Cara was there, which made me feel a bit awful. I'm a man, but I have emotions. That shit was tough. But this is a great game. I don't know if it actually has much replayability as you'd think for the amount of choices you are given, but it's definitely got a couple playthroughs in it. I've played it more times than I probably should have, but then I have played Life is Strange 1 more times than I probably should have, because really you should only play that game twice because there are only 2 different outcomes. But I'm going to stop talking about that or else I'll rant for it for days on end. But anyways, this has been my somewhat extended look at Detroit Become Human, a interesting game made by an interesting company. But anyways, that has been it. I have been J104. If you guys have enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. It means the world. If not, don't. That's okay as well. If you liked the video, hit that like button below. Maybe leave a comment. Tell me what you like about this game or what you don't like about this game. Because I could also see how people see the lack of gameplay as a downside, where you're only occasionally walking your characters and hitting QTE events. But anyways, that has been enough. I've been J104. Peace.